Fashion. They always put me at the far end, one of those long, polished mahogany tables that looked more like a conference hall than a family gathering, same spot every year, right next to the antique sideboard and a floral arrangement tall enough to block half my view. But I didn't mind. At least not anymore, not since I learned how to tune out the Kingsley symphony of self-congratulation. Charlotte's already secured the youngest portfolio manager spot in firm history. Aunt Colleen beamed as if she herself had closed the deal. Her voice, high and sugar-coated, floated down the table like perfume you didn't ask to wear. There were gasps, applause, the clink of champagne glasses. "Goldman practically begged her," her father added proudly, wiping invisible lint from his monogrammed cuff. I sipped my coffee, still too hot. No one looked my way. Not that I expected them to. In this family, visibility was reserved for country club memberships, Ivy League acceptances, or beachfront property acquisitions. I didn't fit any of those categories. I was Maya, the cousin who still did that internet stuff, as they liked to phrase it. The one who turned down Stanford's MBA program to keep working in a makeshift lab space that, according to family lore, was somewhere between a garage and a storage unit. What no one at the table knew was that 48 hours ago, Forbes had selected me for their Women to Watch in Global Innovation feature, and that the company I founded 5 years ago, Helix Core, had just hit a $3 billion, 0 cents valuation after closing a partnership with the National Institutes of Health. But I wasn't there to flex. I was there to observe. "Do you remember still doing that tech thing, Maya?" Aunt Colleen asked, her smile more curious than kind. "Still doing it," I nodded. "AI modeling for genomic sequencing." There was a pause, a short, polite silence as they mentally filed my words under weird science things and moved on. Charlotte leaned in across her imported salad plate, her voice light but loud. "That's cute. You've always liked your little projects. But hey, it's not managing 9-figure assets." 9 figures? I nearly laughed. Her firm's new investment tool was literally powered by Helix Core's engine. The one I built. The irony would have been delicious, if I weren't so used to it. My uncle chuckled from 2 chairs down. "Ever think about getting a real job, Maya? You're not 25 anymore." "I'm doing just fine," I said calmly, tipping the rim of my cup toward him. He smirked. "Still renting that apartment in Greenville?" Charlotte jumped in again. "And still driving that old Honda, I bet." I smiled. "Yep. And you just closed on that penthouse in Miami, right? With your dad co-signing the loan?" The silence hit like a screen going blank. Charlotte's jaw twitched, her voice brittle. "At least I've done something worthy of that support." I nodded, slow and deliberate. "Sure." My mother tried to smooth things over, her tone gentle, edged with fear that I might actually escalate. "Maya, sweetheart, maybe it's time for a fresh start. There's no shame in pivoting to something a little more secure." I set my cup down. "No need. I'm being interviewed next week for the Forbes cover story. Billion-dollar biotech startups. Helix Core's featured." You could have heard the gold-rimmed teacup land 3 rooms away. Uncle Brian cleared his throat too quickly. "Charlotte's firm might still be hiring," he offered. "Your cousin could help get you in the door." Charlotte didn't miss a beat. "That's true. I'm sure there's something entry-level we could plug you into. Data entry, maybe? You're good with computers, right?" I folded my napkin, keeping my eyes steady. "I'm happy where I am." "You're happy being a nobody," Charlotte fired back, louder now. "Some people lead, others drift." And that's when my phone buzzed, discreet, just a nudge in my pocket. A message from my assistant confirming the press embargo for tomorrow's announcement. I stood slowly. "I should get going," I said. "Early shift at the lab?" Aunt Colleen asked, arching a brow. "You could say that." What they thought was a crumbling lab downtown was actually just the decoy. The real Helix Core campus spanned 3 sealed floors in a federal research complex outside Charleston, with government contracts, private equity funding, global partnerships. But no one had asked. No one had ever asked. You can't leave now, my mom blurted. Charlotte hasn't even shared her villa plans. Bought it with this year's bonus, Charlotte said proudly. Though I get it, it's hard to relate when you're still bootstrapping. I paused in the ornate doorway, my hand brushing the carved mahogany frame. You know what's strange? I said. No one's ever asked what Helix Core actually does. Charlotte laughed. Why would we? It's not like you're curing cancer. I smiled faintly. If only you knew. We'd just finished a trial that accelerated gene therapy approval in Brazil by 60%. Another pilot was underway in Berlin, one more in Seoul, all while feeding data to national health crisis prevention models. We were reshaping personalized medicine quietly, efficiently, without family brunch approval. Maybe you're right, I said, adjusting my Italian leather tote. Some of us are just wired differently. Finally admitting I'm ahead, Charlotte said with a sneer. No, I replied. Just saying, we don't all define winning the same way. She blinked, caught between confusion and defensiveness. What does that even mean? I stepped into the hallway, then glanced back. Oh, and Charlotte? Yeah? You should check tomorrow's Forbes. Why? Did they run another puff piece on tech girls in basements? I smiled. Something like that. Outside, the air was cool and still. I made my way past the guest parking area, past the borrowed Civic I drove to keep appearances. Hidden in the trees sat my actual car, a matte black Lucid Air Sapphire. Purring quietly under the branches, I slid into the driver's seat. My phone buzzed again. Confirmed. Live at 9 a.m. EST. Forbes cover locked. I smiled to myself. I didn't need to speak over them. I'd built something they couldn't ignore. The next morning felt like standing at the edge of a tide shift. Not a wave. Waves crash and vanish. This was the slow pull of gravity, dragging old stories out to sea. Helix Core was trending on Twitter, not because of some scandal or a flashy marketing campaign, but because Forbes had just published their newest cover, the quiet billionaire behind biotech's biggest leap. Maya Kingsley. My face, front and center, no filters. No high-powered PR firm, just the truth. Inside my office, top floor, corner suite at Helix Core's headquarters, I leaned back in my chair, the real kind with carbon fiber arms and lumbar support designed for long hours at the helm of a billion-dollar company. Floor-to-ceiling windows bathed the room in soft morning light. A dozen monitors buzzed with real-time metrics, clinical progress, investor chatter, AI learning curves. And still my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Mom, Dad, Aunt Colleen, a slew of cousins. Charlotte, even the relatives who didn't make the brunch were now calling like we were best friends from birth. I let the phone vibrate itself into silence. I had bigger things to focus on. The conference room next door was prepped for a call with global partners. Our newest algorithm, designed to map rare genetic markers in underrepresented populations, was already showing promising results in pilot clinics across 3 continents. Real impact. Real change. Not that my family would know. To them it was still that little lad. I took a breath, flipped through my calendar, and paused at a meeting label. Incoming acquisition interest, Amazon/Nvidia follow-up. Yeah, no pressure. Then the intercom buzzed. Miss Kingsley, said Kara, my assistant, you have a call holding. Someone named Charlotte Kingsley. Of course. Put her through, I said. Then I leaned back and hit speaker. Maya? Even through the static, her voice was unmistakable. High-strung, panicked, riding the edge of disbelief. I just saw the article. This is some kind of prank, right? I mean, you're my vendor. I've been bragging about our tech stack for 6 months. I know, I said calmly. That's what makes this so ironic. What do you mean? Charlotte, I said, sipping my espresso. Those entry-level jobs you kept offering me? You were pitching them to your company's core tech supplier. The silence on the other end was delicious. But, we've been running predictive analytics on your engine? Correct. And that contract comes up for renewal next quarter. There was a crash in the background. Glass, maybe. Or pride. I need this account, Maya. she blurted. "My bonus is tied to system performance. Please tell me you're not going to pull the plug." I didn't answer. Instead, I glanced toward a smaller monitor on my right. Helix Core's contract dashboard. Charlotte's firm was flagged as under performance review. She wasn't just a cousin anymore, she was a client, a vulnerable one. But I wasn't out for revenge. I wasn't here to gloat. I just wanted them to know what I had always known, that power doesn't need to scream to be real. Sometimes it just has to show up and hold the door open for itself. "Charlotte," I said evenly, "we're reviewing all vendor partnerships this month. You're welcome to reapply through the appropriate portal." "What?" "Like everyone else." I clicked the call off. Almost immediately another came through. "Mom and Dad, mobile?" I stared at it for a beat before answering. "Maya Kingsley," my mother barked, voice tight with urgency. "What on earth is this Forbes article?" I smiled softly. "Exactly what it says." "You never told us," she hissed. "You never asked," I said. Not cruel, just matter of fact. "You were always too busy to hear anything that didn't sound like one of Charlotte's bullet points." "This isn't about Charlotte," my father cut in, clearly panicked. $5 billion 0 cents? That's more than the total net worth of our family." "That's right," I said gently. "By quite a bit, actually." There was a long silence on the line, the kind where generations of assumptions start cracking. But Maya?" my mom whispered. "We never meant to belittle me, to mock my work, to treat my company like a phase?" I waited. No one spoke. "You know what's funny?" I continued. "If you'd Googled Helix Core just once in the last 5 years, you would have known. But you didn't. And that silence was louder than anything you've said since." There was a chime. Another call. Charlotte again. I ignored it. My father spoke again, quieter now. "What about my retirement stocks, Maya, the ones we always talked about at dinner? Are you saying—" "I hold majority shares in most of those companies now." A sharp inhale, the sound of a worldview shifting. Then, silence. I leaned forward, minimizing the family chaos on my screen. In its place, the CNBC segment countdown. 20 minutes until I stepped into the spotlight, until the quiet one at the table became the loudest voice in biotech. Kara peeked in. "Miss Kingsley, the crew is almost ready downstairs." "Thanks," I said. "And Charlotte?" "Still in the lobby," she said, suppressing a grin. "She's arguing with security, holding up a Forbes magazine like it's a passport." I nodded. "Tell her to go through the vendor portal if she wants a meeting." "Will do." "And my parents?" 5 minutes out. "They're on the guest list, but not the schedule." I laughed softly. "Then let security know I'm unavailable." Kara blinked, then smiled. "Right away." I stood, walking past the massive digital display wall in my office. Maps, code, data streams, from Zurich, from Toronto, from Seoul, every pixel a reminder. I wasn't lucky. I was relentless. Every message they'd ignored, every time they laughed, every brunch where they offered me real job help, I'd turned it into code, into equity, into legacy, not for vengeance, for truth. I glanced down one final time before leaving. "Charlotte, please, I need this contract. I'm begging you." I powered the phone off. Some people inherit power, some people fake it, and some people build it from scratch and let it speak for itself. I was done waiting to be seen. The studio lights were already warming the air as I stepped onto the CNBC soundstage. A thin wire mic curved over my cheek, barely visible, but I could feel its presence. Just like the weight of everything that had brought me to this moment. Not rage, not revenge, just clarity. The anchor, a polished woman with kind eyes and a razor-sharp tone, turned toward me with a practiced smile. "Maya Kingsley, founder and CEO of Helix Core. First of all, congratulations. You've stayed under the radar for years while quietly building one of biotech's most transformative companies. How did no one see this coming?" I tilted my head slightly. Some people only see what they're trained to see. They look for loud voices, big names, corner offices with brand recognition. Innovation doesn't always show up in a power suit with a pedigree. Sometimes it shows up in a hoodie behind a firewall with a team of researchers working 18-hour days. She nodded, intrigued. And now? I smiled. Now it's too big to ignore. We talked genomics. AI, Helix Core's role in shortening trial timelines by nearly 40% for diseases that once took a decade to study. The host mentioned our adaptive models for rural hospitals and crisis prevention systems in developing countries. I stayed steady, calm, but inside I kept seeing that brunch table, the one where Charlotte sneered about real jobs, the one where Uncle Brian offered me a door into his world not knowing I owned the building next door. I hadn't built Helix Core to prove them wrong. I built it because I believed in what it could become, even when no one else did. That's what made this moment matter, not the spotlight, but the fact that I no longer needed it to validate anything. We went to commercial. I unhooked the mic, stepped off set, and headed back toward the green room where my team had gathered. Kara caught up with me, holding a sleek black tablet. "Miss Kingsley," she said, eyes wide, "requests are flooding in. Bloomberg, Wired, MIT Tech Review, they all want exclusives." I nodded. "Prioritize MIT. They've been asking since last quarter." She hesitated. "And your family's here." "Let them wait," I said without flinching. Back in my private conference lounge, I sat down at the long walnut table. Not unlike the one I grew up eating at, but this one was earned. No hand-me-down legacy, no inherited seat. Every inch of this was mine. I took out my phone. Messages lit up the screen. "Dad, Maya, we're in the lobby. Please talk to us." "Mom, we didn't know, sweetheart. We didn't understand." "Charlotte, I'm outside your office. Don't do this. Let's fix it." I set the phone face down. I didn't owe them this moment, but part of me wanted them to see it. Not out of spite, out of hope. That maybe, finally, they'd recognize value beyond the surface. Kara re-entered, hesitant. "They're asking for 5 minutes. Just 5. I looked at her. "Bring them up. One time, then close the door." Minutes later, they stepped in, my mother nervous and polished, my father quiet but visibly shaken, and Charlotte, makeup immaculate, but pride fraying at the edges. "Maya," my mom began, "we had no idea." "I know," I said evenly. "I mean, we knew you were working hard," she continued, "but not this. Not Forbes cover. Not $5 billion, 0 cents." My dad cleared his throat. "Is that really true? The valuation?" "It's already out of date," I replied. "We're closing a Series F next month, likely closer to $6.30 B." Charlotte opened her mouth, but no sound came out. I looked at her. "Still think I should apply for a data entry role?" She flinched. "I didn't know that Helix Core?" "That your firm's proprietary tech runs on my algorithms," I offered. "Yeah." "You weren't supposed to know. That was the point." "Maya," she said, suddenly pleading, "I need this contract. If we lose Helix Core as a partner, I lose my bonus. Possibly my promotion. I'm not your competitor, Charlotte. I'm your infrastructure." Silence. My mother stepped forward, her voice softer now. "We want to understand, really. We never thought. You were always so quiet." I stood slowly, walking toward the floor-to-ceiling window behind me. Charleston stretched out beneath the morning sun. Old brick streets, new glass towers, the future and the past layered together. "You know what's wild?" I said without turning around. "You never once asked what I was building, not in 5 years. You all made it very clear. If it didn't come with a trust fund or an Ivy League sweatshirt, it wasn't real. But we were wrong," my dad said, his voice thick. "I didn't build Helix Core to shame you. I built it because I believed in something that didn't exist yet. And now it does. That's not arrogance, that's discipline." Charlotte tried once more. "Can we at least talk? About the vendor contract?" I looked her dead in the eye. We're open to renegotiation, like all vendors, through official channels. Kara re-entered. Ms. Kingsley, CNN is ready. They'll patch through in 10. I nodded, then turned back to my family. This isn't revenge. This is reality. I watched as Charlotte's shoulders dropped, her mask cracking. My mom stepped closer. You always were different. That's not an insult anymore, I said. My father looked at me like he was seeing his daughter for the first time. We'd love dinner sometime, he said, just to learn more. I gave the faintest smile. We'll see. They left quietly. No silverware clinking, no toasts, just the weight of realization. 10 minutes later, I was back under studio lights. Another network, another interview. But this one felt different. Because the world didn't just see me now. They finally listened. As I spoke, I saw comments scroll live. I'm a quiet builder too. This gave me hope. Thank you, Maya. I needed this. And in that moment I realized I wasn't alone. There were thousands of us, the overlooked, the underestimated, the ones who didn't get brunch applause but kept showing up anyway. This wasn't a victory lap. It was just the start. So if you've ever been dismissed, doubted, talked over, or told to get a real job, don't wait for them to get it. Build it anyway. They'll catch up when the world does.